distinguished guests, colleagues, friends all. Thank you for the invitation to share a few observations at this 18th edition of the Toronto Global Forum on boosting sustainable economic growth and on strengthening the multilateral free trading system. Your discussions on scaling up for a sustainable future come as the global economy has begun to turn the corner. In our latest OECD Interim Economic Outlook released last week, we project global growth to remain resilient at 3.2% both this year and next year, with declining inflation and robust trade growth. In Canada, we expect the economy to expand by 1.1% this year and 1.8% next year. In the United States, growth is expected to slow, but to be cushioned by monetary policy easing, with growth projected at 2.6% this year and 1.6% next year. Inflation is projected to continue its decline across G20 countries to 5.4% this year and 3.3% next year, down from 6.1% last year. By the end of 2025, we expect inflation to be back to central bank targets in most G20 economies. The policy priorities looking forward are to use the room provided by declining inflation to lower policy interest rates while ensuring inflation is durably reduced, to rebuild fiscal space, to preserve room and to respond to future shocks, and to also help meet future spending pressures, and to boost medium-term growth prospects, including through competition and productivity-enhancing reforms. Risks to the outlook are still significant, including from geopolitical tensions that could further disrupt supply chains and energy markets, pressures on trading patterns, and the risk of economic fragmentation as a result of geopolitical tensions and strategic competitions which have been developing for some time. And to manage these risks and pressures, we need to rebuild trust and confidence in the global trading system. We must restore the negotiation, rulemaking, and education functions of the WTO. We must resist the fragmentation of the global economy into blocks. Well-functioning global markets, a global level playing field, and a rules-based trading system in good working order are a key foundation for boosting medium to long-term growth prospects, for strengthening economic security and improving our resilience to future shocks, and for optimizing the climate transition. Open, well-functioning markets can make the technologies, goods and services necessary for the climate transition available to more countries at a lower cost. To seize these opportunities, there are a range of things we need to do, which the OECD is supporting with our data and evidence-based analysis and our work on policy standards. First, ensuring environmental policies are well coordinated and leverage rather than hold back trade and investment. A globally coherent and better coordinated approach to climate mitigation is key to provide certainty for business investment decisions and to help ensure emissions reduction efforts in any one country or jurisdictions help to maximize global emissions reduction efforts and don't just shift emissions to other parts of the world. Towards this, the OECD's Inclusive Forum for Carbon Mitigation Approaches, of which Canada is an active member, is an initiative designed to help optimize the global emissions reduction impact of emissions reduction efforts in countries around the world, and we do so through better data and information sharing, evidence-based mutual learning on best practices, and indeed inclusive multilateral dialogue involving advanced, emerging and developing economies on how best to avoid negative cross-border spillovers and how best to maximize positive cross-border spillovers. Second, by accelerating progress on the liberalization of trade in green technologies, their inputs and environmental services. Non-tariff trade barriers are growing for the inputs necessary for the climate transition, as well as services such as the design of renewable energy facilities and pollution management. Technical barriers to trade, like product standards and quantitative restrictions, are the most common barriers affecting frequently traded goods, including renewable energy generation components. Our data also shows that the number of export restrictions on critical raw materials have increased more than fivefold in the last decade. These increases in trade restricting measures will have a negative impact on business activity, on growth, on income convergence, and on the costs of the green transition. Third, enhancing the resilience of the supply chains that are critical for the green transition. Production of critical minerals remains heavily concentrated. China, for example, produces 87% of the world's magnesium, 62% of graphite, and 60% of rare earths. Diversification of supplies can help address risks from the excessive concentration of the production and supply base. But let's do so in a sensible and balanced way and without unnecessarily putting at risk the upside benefits that come with expanding global trade. The OECD's Keys to Resilient Supply Chains policy toolkit provides practical advice to policymakers on assessing and managing risks. One critical element is close coordination between governments and the businesses that are active in these supply chains, which can help businesses identify new diversification opportunities and help government identify regulatory obstacles to diversification. As countries seek to enhance supply chain resilience, Canada will have a particularly important role to play as a key exporter of critical raw materials, with Canada ranking among the top 5 producers globally of palladium, aluminium, platinum, titanium, and nickel. In closing, the global economy is turning the corner on inflation as growth appears to remain resilient and with global trade growth recovering very strongly. We can and we should focus again more on the structural challenges faced by our economies. Trade has been a foundation of global growth, promoting competition, innovation, productivity growth, and efficiency, and will help us meet our net zero objectives faster and at a lower cost. We do need to make trade work better for people and for the climate, to manage risks and to ensure everyone has the opportunity to participate and benefit from the upside of trade. But I do hope that altogether we can get the balance right. Thank you.